Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Old Time Rock and Roll. I'm your host, David Tear, where I've been featuring my personal top 3,000 songs of the rock era from 1954 to 1999. And today I'm up to song number 2634, and that one is Right Here, Right Now by an alternative rock group from England called Jesus Jones. I don't know how many of you guys have heard of them, but they didn't have a lot of hits. I'll go over them in a few minutes. But first, I want to talk about. I guess first I'll just show you. It came off their album called Doubt, and which came out in 1991. And um, anyway, here's a picture of the band Jesus Jones, and maybe since I'm talking about them, I'll go over their hits first. So. Um, they didn't have very many hits, like I said. They were formed in 1988. They're an English alternative rock band. They were formed in Wiltshire, England. And their members, I guess they're still around today, and they haven't had any membership changes, which is pretty unusual for a band that's been around that long, over 30 years, I guess. Be 37 years this year. Pretty amazing. But their members are Mike Edwards, Jersey DeBorg, Al Doty, Ian Baker, and the last guy is just known as Jen. I guess his real name was Simon Matthews. So that's Jesus Jones, and I guess this is a picture of them early on when they were still pretty young. I guess they sort of look like an alternative rock band. Anyway, so now I want to talk about this song right here, right now. I mean, I like this song. I don't like a lot of songs from the '90s, especially alternative rock songs. I guess I just never really got into that kind of music too much. That's why I don't have very many songs from the '90s on my list. But I do like this one, and the main reason I like it is I like its message. It's an unusual song. It's a very positive song. And there are not very many, rock songs or popular songs that have a positive message about, just a hopeful message that the world's, getting better. I mean, I guess there have been a few, a few by the Beatles I can think of, like "All You Need Is Love" or "Here Comes the Sun." But I mean, this song they actually talk about some current events from the time. This song, like I said, it came out in 1991. I think it was actually released in 1990, and it was released right after the downfall of the Soviet. It was right after the Berlin Wall was torn down. Actually, that was 1989. Actually, I remember when that happened. I think it was November 1989. I watched it on TV. Actually saw them tearing Berlin Wall down. I was pretty amazed when I saw it. I don't know how many of you guys saw it. Probably most people on this channel, I think, are old enough to remember when all this happened. Pretty amazing. I mean, I was born in 1962, and I grew up in the midst of the Cold War, and the Cold War went on for 45, 45 or 46 years. I mean, if you count, the end of World War II, we were already kind of, had an uneasy truce with the Soviet Union. The only reason they were our allies during World War II is because we were both on the same side against Nazi Germany, against the Axis powers, basically. But, we'd already been, kind of at least ideological enemies of them ever since they were formed, I mean, and, you know, um, Cold War was a pretty crazy time. I remember it. I mean, a lot of people were scared we might have World War III, and there was just a lot of paranoia on both sides. And most of our military policy was focused on the Cold War, and even though it didn't turn into a hot war, we had a huge nuclear arsenal build up, and we had some wars on the side, as I'm sure you guys all know, related to it, like Korea and Vietnam, and there were a lot of others, and so when the Cold War ended, I was pretty, I guess I had sort of mixed feelings when the Soviet Union fell. Let me just tell you. I mean, I said that I'm gonna try to avoid politics on this channel, but today, so this is a pretty political song. I don't think I can really avoid it with concerning this song. So yeah, they sing about how the Berlin Wall came down. I think they also mention how Germany got unified. It had been divided, and I'm sure you guys all know, into two countries, East Germany and Western. East Germany was kind of a satellite of the Soviet Union. West Germany was kind of it was a capitalist country, on the side of the United States, part of NATO, and Europe was basically divided into Eastern and Western Europe, and I think they still are, but we have what was called the Iron Curtain, and that pretty much came down once the Soviet Union fell, and I guess I'm just gonna say one more thing about this. I mean, Jesus Jones was very positive about all this. Like all my life, I've been waiting, watching the world wake up from history, and that's a nice point of view. That we no longer had a Cold War. Of course, that didn't end warfare. I mean, we've still had a lot of pretty strong international tensions, as I'm sure you all know. But I'd say the '90s. I was pretty hopeful in the '90s. Of all the times I've lived through in my life, in terms of the political climate, I'd say the '90s was the most benign political climate I can ever remember during my lifetime. I mean, I really liked Clinton. Not everybody did, but I thought Clinton was a pretty great president. He's the best president I remember. And I just remember, like we had the European Union. I don't think Jesus Jones even mentions this in this song, but Europe was pretty unified. They even came up with their own, currency for all of, for like 12 countries in Europe, the euro. And, there was the European Union, and, for a lot of practical purposes, at least Western Europe was kind of like one country. And I think now they're not doing so well anymore. But in the '90s, they were going pretty strong. And, I think there's just one more thing about I want to say about all this. I mean, a couple of years ago, I read a really excellent book by called The Better Angels of Our Nature. I might have mentioned that book in a few other videos on this channel, but it's by a very famous sociologist named Steven Pinker, and he has all this evidence in his book. The book is basically he wrote it I think around 2010, and he claims that when he wrote the book, he said that we were living in the most peaceful time in human history. And he had all the statistics to back him up. I mean, homicide rates and rates of casualties from national wars and all that, and all the statistics pretty much backed him up. Of course, there was always setbacks. I mean, I think one thing he didn't see coming was just we've had a lot of terrible setbacks, I'd say, in the last 10 years or so. I mean, mostly with Trump. I don't want to get into this too much, but I think America's going backwards in some very scary ways right now. But this wasn't the case in the '90s, and I can understand why Jesus Jones was very hopeful and optimistic about what was going on. And I guess I'll just say one more thing about how the end of the Cold War affected me in a very positive way. My last girlfriend, I think I mentioned her in a few other videos on this channel. She was born in what used to be the Soviet Union. She was born in Ukraine. And she had a really, really rough life, as you can imagine, growing up in the Soviet Union, as I think most people did. But, right after the Cold War in 1992, she was able to immigrate to the United States. She wouldn't have been able to do that when they were the Soviet Union. And she's had a much, much better life, as you can imagine, ever since she's been an American citizen. And if it weren't for the downfall of the Soviet Union, I don't think I would have ever met her. She probably would still be in the Soviet Union. So I guess I have the downfall of the Soviet Union. I might even have Reagan to thank in part. I hate to say that, but he did help in the Cold War, I guess, by putting a lot of pressure on Gorbachev. I mean, I think Gorbachev was a really good premier, and I was actually a little disappointed in a way when the Soviet Union fell because I wanted to see it work. I thought Gorbachev could have made it work, but I guess they just fell apart. I mean, it was too hopeless. But you know, I am a socialist. I am a democratic socialist. I'm not a commie. I don't like any form of autocracy, and I don't think I think just about everybody in the world I think can agree that the Soviet Union was a pretty horrible country, and I can't think of any communist countries where communism really worked well. Unfortunately, Karl Marx, he had some good ideas, but they just didn't seem to don't seem to really work in practice. Although socialism is not a political theory, it's an economic theory. And I think we could have democratic socialism. I wish we had that here in the United States. I mean, Scandinavia is like that. A lot of Europe is like that. Socialism is working in a lot of European countries. And here, we're just so fucked up with capitalism. It's getting worse and worse. And I don't even want to think about what's going to happen with Trump. I'm kind of hoping for a socialist revolution here in the United States. But anyway, enough of that. Enough politics. That completes my profile of Right Here, Right Now by Jesus Jones. Thank you for watching. You guys rock, and I'll see you next time.